From cold-blooded clutch shots under insane pressure to brilliant plays so sneaky, even their playing partners didn't see it coming. These are the 20 most unbelievable shots ever happened in US Open history. And first we start with number 20, the exact moment Rory McIlroy turned dominance into a full-blown takeover. It was Friday at the 2011 US Open and Rory was already off to a hot start. But what happened on the 8th hole made everyone watching sit up a little straighter. He just striped a drive down the fairway. Perfect position on the short par 4. With a wedge in hand and a clear look at the pin, this looked like a simple birdie setup. Stick it close, tap it in, keep the momentum going. But Rory had something else in mind. He launched his approach sky high. It flew past the flag, landed softly, and then started to spin. Slowly, deliberately, rolling back toward the cup. And then it disappeared. An eagle. Out of nowhere, the kind of shot that doesn't just change around. It announces your arrival. From that moment on, the tournament was over. Rory never looked back. He finished the week at 16 under par, shattering the US Open scoring record and putting on one of the most dominant displays the game has ever seen. Next up, number 19. And let me tell you, this one had a crazy ending. Tom Watson stood over his ball just off the green at the par 3 17th at Pebble Beach, tied with Jack Nicklaus in the final round of the 1982 US Open. The pressure? Immense. The lie? Awkward. Most players would have been thinking damage control, just get it close, tap in for par, move on. But not Watson. He looked at his caddy and said, "I'm going to sink it." And then he did. The ball popped out perfectly, landed on the fringe, took one soft hop, and broke right into the hole. Watson exploded with energy, sprinting up the hill, pumping his fist in the air like he'd just won the whole thing. And in a way, he had. Jack Nicklaus, watching from the clubhouse, knew what that meant. Watson would go on to birdie the 18th too, locking up his only US Open title, thanks to one of the craziest chip-ins in major championship history. Now for number 18. And trust me, you've never seen geometry like this on a golf course. It was the final hole of the 2000 US Open at Pebble Beach. Tiger Woods was already in full domination mode, steamrolling the field like it wasn't even fair. But just when you thought he might start playing it safe, he pulled off one of the most ridiculous shots you'll ever see. His tee shot on the par 5 18th landed on the right side of the fairway. Not bad, until you saw the tree. A giant cypress, right in his line. Most players would have punched out or taken the safe route down the fairway. But Tiger? He pulled 3 wood and stared down a shot that looked impossible. With the Pacific Ocean stretching out to his left, he aimed out over open water and let it rip. And then came the swing. He launched it high, cut it hard, and somehow the ball bent back around the tree like it had a steering wheel. It soared over the cliffs, curved back onto the green, and rolled to a perfect spot. Even the commentators couldn't believe it. It looked like a video game glitch. But nope, just Tiger being Tiger. A few moments later, he tapped in for birdie and closed out the most dominant US Open win in history by 15 shots. But it's that second shot, carved through wind and over water, that still makes jaws drop to this day. At number 17, it was finally Dustin Johnson's time. After years of crushing defeats and major heartbreak, he arrived at the final hole of the 2016 US Open at Oakmont with everything on the line. He had a 2-shot lead, but nothing was guaranteed. Earlier in the round, the USGA told him he might be assessed a penalty. They just weren't sure yet. So Johnson played the rest of the round without knowing his actual score. Now standing on the 18th tee, he needed to close it out. No drama, no questions. He smashed his drive down the middle, leaving himself 190 yards to the pin. And then, with a 6-iron in hand, he hit the shot. A laser that pierced through the air, landed soft, and settled just 3 feet from the flag. It was cold, it was clinical, it was the shot that slammed the door. He made the birdie, took the trophy, and finally became a major champion. And penalty or not, there was no doubt who earned it. Coming in at number 16. This shot came from one of the most unforgiving clubs in golf, at one of the most pressure-packed moments of Jack Nicklaus's career. The year was 1972. Pebble Beach was brutal, cold, windy, and relentless. And Jack Nicklaus was just 2 holes away from victory. Standing on the tee of the 17th hole, a 208-yard par 3 staring straight into the wind. But this wasn't a hole you just survived. Not in those conditions. He needed something special. So he reached for the hardest club in the bag, the 1 iron. And let's be honest, when's the last time you saw anyone on tour using that thing? It was a bold choice, especially with that wind, but Nicklaus made it look easy. He launched it high into the breeze, held the line, and watched as the ball pierced through the gusts, dropped onto the green, and slammed straight into the flagstick. It stopped just inches from the hole. That one swing didn't just quiet the nerves, it sealed the championship. A perfect shot at the perfect time from one of the greatest to ever play the game. Next up, number 15. At the 2015 US Open, 21-year-old Jordan Spieth stood on the 18th fairway at Chambers Bay with everything on the line. Just one hole earlier, he had doubled the 17th. A disaster that came out of nowhere. His tee shot missed the fairway, his approach rolled off the back, and then he 3-putted from the fringe. Just like that, a one-shot lead turned into a tie at the top. It was a gut punch at the worst possible time. And now, with a chance to make history, Spieth needed something special. He had 284 yards to the hole. The green was narrow, the pressure insane, and he pulled out a 3-wood. And what happened next was absolutely jaw-dropping. Spieth launched it high, talking to his ball the entire way. Hit it wind, any wind up there, hit it a little bit, begging for just the right help from the skies. The shot came off dead straight, landed perfectly on a slope near the back edge of the green, kicked left, and began tracking straight toward the pin. It stopped just past the flag, leaving a simple 2-putt for birdie. A calm, championship-level answer to the chaos of the hole before. And when Dustin Johnson missed his short birdie putt minutes later, Spieth's birdie on 18 proved to be the difference, coming in at number 14. This one broke hearts in real time, while the camera was still rolling. The year was 1992. The US Open at Pebble Beach had turned into a windstorm. Gusts were topping 40 miles per hour, the greens were rock hard, and balls were flying in every direction, except the right one. Colin Montgomery had already posted an even par finish. In those conditions, that looked unbeatable. Even Jack Nicklaus, watching from the booth, started offering congrats. Then came Tom Kite. On the iconic 7th hole, a 106-yard par 3 that was playing like 206, Kite missed the green long and left. No surprise, only one player from the last 15 groups had even found the green. From that lie in that wind, most would have just hoped to get it anywhere near the hole. But Kite saw something. He gave the pitch a nudge, the wind caught it, and it broke right into the cup. Montgomery watched from the TV booth, hands on his head, stunned. That chip didn't just save Kite, it flipped the whole momentum of the final round. He still had work to do, but that one shot was the statement, the turning point, the proof that he wasn't just surviving the chaos, he was beating it. At number 13, it all came down to one swing from one of the worst spots on the course. Matt Fitzpatrick was clinging to a one-shot lead on the 72nd hole of the 2022 US Open at the Country Club. He'd been rock solid all week, but his drive on 18 found trouble. A fairway bunker on the left. It was a nightmare lie. Ball slightly above his feet, no margin for error, and staring straight into the pressure of winning his first major. But Fitzpatrick went for it. With a full swing and a 9-iron in hand, he launched a dart that cut through the tension and dropped just 18 feet from the pin. No wild celebration, no fist pump. Just a deep breath and the quiet confidence of a player who had just taken control of the tournament. He 2-putted for par and won his first major, thanks to a shot that showed nerves of steel when it mattered most. Which brings us to number 11. And this one came from a 21-year-old amateur who played like he owned the place. Before Jon Rahm was a major champion, before he was one of the most feared players in the world, he was just a rising star trying to prove he belonged. And at the 2016 US Open at Oakmont, he didn't just belong, he lit the place up. It was the third round. Rahm stepped up to the par 5 12th hole and laid up with his second shot, leaving himself 111 yards to the pin. Nothing flashy, just smart golf. But what came next? That was pure magic. He gave his wedge a smooth swing. The ball climbed into the air, landed a few feet past the flag, and then zipped backward, spinning straight into the hole. Eagle! The crowd went wild. And Rahm? He just calmly walked up and took it all in. It was a glimpse of what was coming. He would go on to finish as low amateur that week. But that shot? That shot looked like something out of a primetime highlight reel. And it came from a kid who was just getting started. Halfway through at number 10, this shot didn't just win the US Open, it shut the door with style. It was 1995 at Shinnecock Hills. Torrey Pines wasn't the biggest name in the field, and he definitely wasn't the biggest hitter. But on Sunday afternoon, with everything on the line, he stood on the 18th fairway with a one-shot lead, needing just one more big moment to close the deal. And then came the shot. He had 228 yards to the flag. The wind was up, nerves were high, and instead of playing it safe, Pavin pulled his 4-wood. Not a club you see every day from the fairway, especially not on the 72nd hole of the US Open. But he made it count. He striped it. The ball soared through the air and landed just a few feet from the cup. You could hear the crowd explode before it even stopped rolling. That one swing sealed it. A tap-in par, a major championship, and one of the gutsiest clutch shots you'll ever see under pressure. Torrey Pines didn't overpower Shinnecock. He outplayed it. And that 4-wood, straight into the history books. Coming in next is one of the most spine-tingling putts in US Open history. A moment of pure Tiger Woods magic under maximum pressure. It was 2008 at Torrey Pines, Sunday afternoon. Tiger was limping on a fractured leg, held together by adrenaline, painkillers, and pure willpower. He had one hole left and one chance left. He had to birdie the 18th to force a playoff with Rocco Mediate. His tee shot found the fairway. His approach landed short, but a brilliant chip gave him a chance. A downhill 12-foot putt with everything on the line. It wasn't just a must-make, it was the kind of putt that defines legacies. Tiger took a breath, rolled it pure, and when it dropped, Torrey Pines exploded. He threw his arms into the air like a matador. Wounded, defiant, iconic. That putt didn't just force a playoff, it capped off one of the gutsiest performances the sport has ever seen, and set the stage for Tiger's final major win of his prime. At number 8, one swing, one shot, and one moment that sealed a championship. The year was 1976, and the US Open had come to the Atlanta Athletic Club for the very first time. It was hot, it was tense, and it all came down to the 18th hole. Jerry Pate, just 22 years old, had climbed into the lead for the first time all day. One shot clear of his playing partner, John Mahaffey. Mahaffey blinked first. His approach shot splashed into the pond guarding the green. But Jerry? He was in the right rough, 190 yards out with the flag tucked all the way to the back left. The smart play was to bail out right, take par, and hope for the best. But that's not what he did. He pulled 5-iron, took a deep breath, and flushed it. The ball flew high, cut through the air, and landed like it had eyes. 2 feet from the cup. That single shot sealed the deal. A tap-in birdie, a one-shot win. And just like that, Jerry Pate became a major champion with one of the coldest finishers in US Open history. All right, coming in at number 7. Let's talk about a shot that made the brutal Oakmont look easy, at least for one swing. It was the first round of the 2016 US Open, and 21-year-old Matt Fitzpatrick had just missed the green on the par 4 second. His ball rolled into a nasty little greenside bunker. Deep, awkward, and not exactly the place you expect to create a highlight. A spot where most players would be content to get up and down for par. But Fitzpatrick had other plans. He took his stance, executed a precise swing, and watched as the ball sailed out of the sand and dropped straight into the cup. No bounce, just a clean dunk. Bunker to bucket. No need to read the green. No need to worry about the speed. Just a cold-blooded hole out that turned a stressful par into a walk-off birdie. At Oakmont of all places, that's something you don't forget. On to the next one. It looked like Larry Nelson was running out of magic. He had barely made the cut at the 1983 US Open, but somehow clawed his way into contention with 2 incredible rounds. Now, with just a few holes left at Oakmont, he was tied for the lead, right in the thick of it. But Oakmont isn't the kind of place where you coast to victory. You have to earn it. And on the 16th hole, a tough par 3, Nelson faced one of the most intimidating putts you'll ever see. 60 feet. Uphill at first, then breaking hard downhill. The kind of putt you'd just hope to cozy up close. But Nelson gave it a smooth roll. The ball climbed the ridge, caught the right line, and just kept tracking. And then it dropped. A 60-foot birdie in the final round on one of the fastest greens in major championship golf. That putt gave Nelson the outright lead, and he never looked back. It was the moment that turned a steady charge into a legendary win. Here we are at number 4. Most players, when faced with thick rough, a tree in their line, and a green perched high on a ridge, would do the sensible thing. Punch out, take their medicine, and hope to save par the hard way. But Tiger Woods wasn't most players, and the 2000 US Open at Pebble Beach wasn't about playing it safe. It was the 6th hole, long, uphill, and brutal. After a wayward drive, Tiger found his ball buried in 4 inches of thick rough, 205 yards from the flag. In front of him stood a towering tree with the green sitting far above on a steep, elevated plateau. Just getting the ball back in play would have been impressive. Instead, Tiger reached for a 7-iron, not to lay up, but to go for it. He launched the ball up and over the tree, over the rise, and somehow, against every odd in the book, it landed on the green and held. The NBC announcers were stunned. Roger Maltby summed it up perfectly. It's just not a fair fight. Because in that moment, it wasn't. Tiger wasn't battling the field. He was on a completely different level. You've made it to our top 3 of the list of greatest shots in US Open history. And let me tell you, nobody saw this coming. Not even him. The year was 1990, and Hale Irwin was quietly grinding his way through the final round at Medina. At 45 years old, he wasn't exactly the center of attention. It had been over a decade since his last major win, and most figured his best days were behind him. But on Sunday afternoon, he found himself with a chance. One last hole, one long putt. Irwin stood over a 45-footer on the 18th green, uphill, winding, with everything on the line. It looked more like a lag putt situation than a game changer, but he hit it perfectly. The crowd leaned in as the ball made its way up the slope, took the break, and disappeared into the cup. The place erupted. Irwin exploded with a fist pump, slapped hands with a fan, and broke into a full-on jog off the green, grinning like a kid. That putt forced a playoff, and the next day, Irwin finished the job. He became the oldest US Open winner in history, thanks to a putt that started as a prayer and ended as a moment for the ages. All right, number 2. This wasn't just a highlight, it was a thunderclap in the middle of a major. Scottie Scheffler was right in the thick of it during the 3rd round of the 2022 US Open at the Country Club in Brookline. He'd been playing steady, patient golf, keeping himself in the hunt without making too much noise. But then came the par 5 8th. After a solid drive and a smart layup, Scheffler stood over his 3rd shot from 102 yards out. It's a distance every pro loves. But the pressure? That's what separates the contenders from the champions. Scheffler gave it one smooth swing. The ball soared high, landed softly on the front of the green, and then the crowd started leaning forward. It kept rolling, breaking slightly left, and then disappeared right into the cup. Eagle. Boom. The crowd exploded. The leaderboard flipped. And just like that, Scheffler had taken the outright lead at the US Open. What made the moment even bigger was what it meant. A surge of momentum in one of the tightest majors in recent memory. Fitzpatrick, Zalatoris, and Scheffler were all trading blows. But this eagle, it was a haymaker. How could we not finish this list with a banger? Here's number 1. Picture this. Final hole of the US Open, tied for the lead, pressure at absolute maximum. Bryson DeChambeau stood on the 18th tee at Pinehurst number 2, knowing a par might be the difference between heartbreak and history. He pulled driver, and the ball veered left, landing near one of the grandstands just under a tree. It left him with a brutally tough lie and a not ideal angle into the green. His second shot? Aggressive. He went for it, but couldn't quite pull it off. The ball landed in the greenside bunker, 54 yards from the flag. And that's when the magic happened. Bryson climbed in, stared down a 54-yard shot, one of the most uncomfortable distances in golf, and just went for it. The ball soared out of the sand, landed softly, and started rolling. It stopped just 4 feet from the hole. He made the putt, and the crowd exploded. And just like that, Bryson DeChambeau was a 2-time US Open champion. Thanks to one of the most perfectly timed bunker shots in major championship history,